Picture a classroom. A teacher walks in, draws 3 lines on the board. Obviously disproportionate in length. Line A, line B, line C. And he asks a very simple question: which line is the longest? And to you, obviously, line A is the longest. There's no question about that. But just as you're about to raise your hand and answer the question, something strange happens. All around you, your friends, your classmates, they start raising their hands and all of them answer C. You look at the board, you look at them again, and sure enough, they're pretty confident. Right then, the question in your mind is no longer which line is the longest. The question in your mind is, am I really going to be the only idiot who says A? So what do? You swallow your pride, you raise your hand, and sure enough, you answer C. Congratulations, you've just betrayed your own eyes for a little social approval. Welcome to social psychology. That's it. My name is Mohammed, and I happen to teach students, just like many of you here in the room today, future engineers at Limed in Tétouan. Students who find comfort in integrals. Students who think feelings are a bug in the system, not a feature. And I get it, you trust logic, you trust equations. But today I'm here to talk about something that doesn't care about your IQ. I'm here to talk about how other people live inside your mind. Like 100 open Chrome tabs running in the background, draining your battery. Makes sense? I call that the crowd in my head. And I'd like to walk you through ways in which that crowd manipulates us, quietly moves our hand, through 3 forces from social psychology. And hopefully by the end I'll get to a very important question. How free are we really? Where does our freedom begin? Now, when we think psychology, often we think of the individual, deep in thoughts, maybe with his or her Spotify playlists and his or her existential crisis. But social psychology says no, not really. An individual is never really alone in their mind. In their mind is a crowded cafe, and in it, there's your parents, your friends, that one teacher's voice that still haunts you to this day, your haters, your Instagram followers, your crush, who knows? All of them sitting there quietly, giving their opinion, uninvited. And so, like I said, those 3 forces that I'm about to invoke give us an idea of how those people, that silent crowd in our minds, moves us, or moves our hand. Now back to the classroom with the 3 lines. You have to ask yourself, why did that person conform? He's not blind, he's not stupid. The scientist who conducted the experiments, Solomon Asch is his name, he brought forth 2 principles. The normative influence, or the normative principle, and that's basically you saying, I want to fit in, I want to belong, I want to feel like I belong, I like my social life, thank you very much. The second principle is informational influence. And that's you basically saying, well, if the entire classroom saw that C is the longest line, and I'm the only one who saw A, then there must be something wrong with me. Maybe it's my eyesight. I'll go get my eyes checked. And thus we conform. But conformity is not always bad. I mean, without it, society collapses. Imagine if the next day, no one decides to stop at a red traffic light. No one decides to queue at a line. Imagine if the next day everybody's blasting their phones on speaker mode on public transportation. Or maybe not the last one, because that's already happening. But you get the picture, right? So conformity is not the problem. Conformity is a problem only when it meets let's call it moral laziness. When we stop asking, is that right or is it wrong? And we simply ask, is it normal? The philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote extensively about totalitarianism. And she spoke about a concept she coined, the banality of evil. How evil becomes so banal. And these are ordinary people. She conducted her research on Nazi Germany. Ordinary people who participated in great evil doing, not because they were inherently monsters, but simply because they were ordinary people. They were tired. They wanted to stay in the lane. And a simple example of that would be you sitting amongst your friends and one of you strikes a nasty joke directed at someone in the group. And deep inside you feel something's wrong. Obviously the person doesn't sit well with the person. Maybe too racist. But you smile nonetheless, maybe even laugh with the group. Because in your mind, the question is not, is it right or wrong? But it's simply, how do I not become the subject of the next joke? You get it? So, let's think of it that way. Conformity turns up the volume of the crowd and turns down the volume of your conscience. And this is the first instance where the crowd in our head literally warps reality. Makes you betray your eyes just to keep a seat in the group. Let's move to the second force. Say you're walking down an empty street at night, and right there on the ground lies somebody motionless, doesn't move, their bag is next to them, obviously it's serious. I doubt that you would walk past that person. You feel a heavy responsibility resting on your shoulders. At least you would stop and ask, are you okay? Right? I don't imagine you would walk past that person. But imagine I take that person and I put them on a busy street, say Times Square. I bet you the majority of people will walk right past that person. No one will bat an eye. So you ask, or you wonder to yourself, how cruel is the society we live in? And then social psychology answers you, not quite. That's called the bystander principle. It's very common. In a crowd, responsibility becomes diffused. It is literally called the diffusion of responsibility. In a crowd, that responsibility is scattered across the multitude, so thin, you as an individual, you don't even feel the weight of it. In their mind, everybody's saying, okay, we can see someone lying on the ground. Apparently it's serious, but there's so many of us. Surely one of those people will stop and help them. Only that person is Godot, who never shows up. Make sense? And so, I'll give you an example of this. You're in the classroom, you're students. Lesson's over, half the class does not understand. Teacher asks, any questions? Silence. Holy silence. No one breathes a word. You know why? Bystander principle. Each one is waiting for the other person to say something, to talk. And the results? A whole class that is confused. Bystander principle. No, Chair, it's fine. Thank you very much. And in this is another instance where the crowd is not warping reality for you this time. No, the crowd is paralyzing you into thinking one of those people in the silent crowd will move first. You get it? Third force. Some of you here drive, right? What happens when someone cuts you off in traffic? Idiot. Stupid driver. What a maniac. That's my favorite one. I go after the people who handed them that driver's license. I want to slap them in the face. What happens when you cut people off in traffic? Oh, I ride a motorcycle. I cut a lot of people off in traffic. You become a philosopher of context. You give yourself a million reasons why you did it. Oh, the sun was in my eye. I had a rough day, okay? Or to quote the movie Snatch, if you've watched the movie, I didn't see him there. It's a 4-ton truck, Tyrone. It's not a pack of bloody peanuts, is it? What do you say? I didn't see it there. So, point being, you give yourself lots of reasons why you did it. You overestimate the power of the situation for yourself, but you underestimate the power of the situation for others. For you, me equals a complex human being with complex and rich, inner goings in life. But you, for me, equals a stupid thing you did, but that I would never forgive or forget. You get it? So we do not extend the same courtesy we extend ourselves to others. There was a social psychologist, Kurt Lewin, and he brought forth a very simple formula. He said, behavior is the function of the person and the environment. You cannot separate the two. A person is not only who they are, but where they are as well. Okay? But you might ask yourself, okay, what does this have to do with the crowd in my head, this third force? Well, ask yourself, how did we come to learn about such things as lazy, idiot, disrespectful? We got to learn that through our parents, teachers, social media, our villains, our heroes, aka your crowd. So when someone that is stranger to you shows up late to a meeting and you immediately deem them disrespectful, you're not observing them. You're simply reaching to an inner crowd, the crowd you have in mind, who act in that moment as a judge. They hand you out a very ready-made verdict, and that's how you label them. Now, you want to take a look at all these three forces at work? You don't need a lab, you just need Wi-Fi. Take a look at social media. It's all over social media. Conformity. Suddenly today, everybody on social media is talking about the same topic that no one cared about yesterday. Suddenly everybody's on the same page. Bystander principle, that's someone being bullied somewhere online. Thousands, millions of views, but hardly anyone comes to their rescue because everybody's saying, someone else will defend this person, right? But there's something more sinister about social media, and I call it the manufacturing of impression, or impression management, let's call it. The sociologist Erving Goffman, he said, all the world, of course, is not a stage, but the intricate ways in which it isn't are very, very hard to specify. In other words, the world is not exactly a theater, but it's close enough that we should be worried and uncomfortable. We put on acts every day. We walk down the streets, actors. We pick our costumes, our lines, our filters. Social media simply gave us an actual stage, an actual audience, and an actual notification every time the audience claps. Every time somebody hits that like button. Okay? And, okay, so it might sound sinister by now. Okay, I come to the question that I invoked in the beginning. How free are we? Because it sounds depressing. If the crowd warps reality for us and makes us see black as white, if the crowd paralyzes us and does not let us extend a helping hand, if social media makes performers of us all, then what agency do we have? Are we not simply puppets in this psychological circus? I don't think so. I'm not a big fan of Michel Foucault, but I find myself quoting him a lot. And Foucault said, freedom is not the absence of power, but the ability to navigate through it, to dance with it, to play with it. And for me, freedom begins when an individual does three things. First, you become aware of that crowd in your head. just be conscious of it. 2, notice the force at play. Am I trying to conform here? Right? And 3, initiate a very simple act, but an act that is unpredictable to that crowd in your mind. That simple act might simply be you raising your hand and breaking the silence in the classroom when the teacher asks, are there any questions? Taking the initiative to help someone out and not wait for Godot who never shows up. Or deciding not to laugh at that racist joke. And those are subtle acts. But sometimes it can take an act that could actually change your life. Sometimes the acts that you take, as you notice the forces in your mind, the crowd in your mind, that act might change the course of your life, like I said. And I'd like to end on this. I'd like to end on an instance when I initiated an act like that. And I was back in 2003. Back in 2003, I was not more standing on a red spot. I was a 15-year-old kid. And one afternoon, in that summer of 2003, I walked into a cyber cafe. I sat down, I turned on the computer, I logged on MSN, and I started chatting with a French girl, in French. I was feeling pretty confident about myself. I was a brilliant student, mind you, up until that moment. And suddenly I hear a voice in the room I was in. A young lady speaking in perfect English. And I did not understand a single word of what she was saying. But that English fell like music onto my ears. I was curious. Stood up slowly. I wanted to see the face behind that voice. And I saw her. And she could not have been older than me back then. Moroccan. My age. I froze. I felt something terrible. It was shame and jealousy. It was, why not me? Why do I not have that? Now freeze this scene and listen to the voices in my head. She is talented, she's gifted, she has advantages, you don't. Move on. But what surprised me is that I couldn't stay. I rose up, logged out of MSN, and I left that cyber cafe, feeling defeated, yes. But I left, and I remember that walk back home as if it was yesterday. I left with such a determination I had never felt before lessons. It was, I want what that young lady has, and I'm gonna have it. Not someday, not when I go abroad, no, now. And not even a school year later, I remember being the only student conversing with the English teacher. Not perfect English, not poetic, but fluent. Now the most important thing in this story is that that young girl, she never even looked back. She never even saw me. She never even knew of my existence. But for me, she's been living in my head for the past 23 years. So my friends, when I talk about the crowd in my head, I don't always mean the critics, the expectations. I also mean the good ghosts. That one friend who once believed in you. That one teacher who told you once, you can do better and I'll help you. And yeah, sure, a random stranger in cyber cafe who lit fire in a boy she didn't even know he existed. We don't get to choose whether people live in our minds or not. They do. Social psychology has already established that, sealed. But we get to choose the voices we want to listen to. The critics we hear or we shut down. And for me, that young girl, when she spoke in English, she was not a reminder of how small I was, but she's still, she sits in the front row now. She's in that audience. But she's a reminder of what a voice, a fleeting moment, a person, a random person, can change the entire course of your life and sometimes not even knowing that they did. Thank you very much.